Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Light Sports Ramble. This is actually take two. Tonight we're going to talk fantasy football wide receivers, and I'll tell you what, there is so much to talk about that I actually rambled more than 15 minutes. And for YouTube, I have to keep it under 15. So I'm going to get right to the point, talk about the receiving core this year in fantasy. But there's a lot to talk about. As I move into it, though, for your fantasy needs, Fantasy World Order, it's a great website, FWO365.com. Go check it out. Join a league. Drafts are forming. It's a great site for you to be able to get involved in fantasy football. But I'm going to get right into this now, and I'm going to cut right to the chase because I don't want to go too long. Lot to talk about. So, as always, I take the ESPN fantasy football top players. For receivers, they have the top 90. And so I'm going to go in and I'm going to talk about where I think there's some discrepancy, who should move up, who should move down, and give you some pointers for receivers. The one thing you have to remember is you've got your number one guns, right? But you also have to take a look at which teams have receivers that are quality that will be losing a lot of games and they have to pass the ball. That's why Megatron got the record last year. Because Detroit was losing, they had no choice but to continue to pass the ball. So think about that. Which teams are not going to do well and are going to continuously be behind in ball games where they have to throw the ball? And so getting into it, on the rankings, of course, Megatron's number one. I mean, that's a no-brainer. They got A.J. Green at number 2. I'm okay with that. Where I have my problem is at 3 and 4. We've got Dez Bryant and Brandon Marshall. I don't think Dez Bryant is the third best fantasy receiver. I really don't. Because if Garrett's going to win games this year, he's going to have to split this up between Bryant and Austin. Bryant's a good receiver. And he may be the go-to guy, may be targeted, but I don't see him as number 3. I'm moving him down my draft board. I'm not spending a high draft pick on Bryant. Because I don't think he's the third best. And Brandon Marshall had a great year last year because the Bears were losing, like I alluded to a little bit ago. But I'm going to go back to an interview I watched with Brandon Marshall on the NFL Network. He even said this year he may not put up the same numbers as last year because Cutler is going to have to spread the ball around. That is a Trestman offense. Now, I'm not saying he's not worthy of being a number 1 receiver for you, but he may not be the 4th best receiver in fantasy right now. Something to think about. And again, those words are right from Brandon Marshall. Now, is he the guy that Cutler's going to look to? Yes, and he's going to be targeted. But I also think the Bears are going to be a little more competitive on offense and spread the ball around like Marshall said. I think you move Julio Jones up. You got Roddy White on one side, you got Gonzalez, you got Steven Jackson in the backfield. Julio, I think, is going to be one of the best receivers in fantasy this year. They have him at 5. I mean, not far to move him up, but I like Julio Jones. I think he's going to put up some big numbers. Another guy I think you should move up your list is Randall Cobb. When Jennings was hurt and they put Cobb in the slot, he thrived. The guy was beast. He knows the offense. He's got a good relationship with Rodgers. Guess what? Cobb is going to get targeted, especially with Jennings being gone. And with the injury problems that Nelson has, and again, he's tweaked up already in preseason. So guess what? Cobb is going to get some numbers. I think he's better than number 10. Also a guy to think about moving up is Fitzgerald in Arizona. Got him at number 11. But he's got a quarterback this year. He's got Palmer. The guy's still got an arm. They're going to be losing. They're going to be throwing the ball. Who's Palmer going to look to? Fitzgerald. I think Fitzgerald regains his form when Kurt Warner played. I really believe this. I think he's higher than 11. I would also move Colston up. They have him at 14. Where's Breeze going? Where's Breeze going to go with the ball? He's going to go to Colston. Colston's going to get his yards, going to get his catches. I think Colston's a number one receiver for you guys. So think about that. And you know the Saints just love to pass. So Colston's going to get his numbers, people. The biggest one to me, though, in this list is Dwayne Bowe at 21. Really? I'm going to go back to what I said yesterday. Who's making this list? You're not giving Kansas City any credit. Do we think Andy Reid has all of a sudden had this revelation that he's going to start running the ball? Andy Reid passes the ball. That's why I think Alex Smith is a sleeper. That's why I think Dwayne Bowe is a sleeper. He's already a good receiver, but who are they going to target? They're going to target Bowe. And I said when I did the running backs, I feel bad for Charles. Because Andy Reid is a West Coast guy that's going to throw the ball. So I would move Bowe up my draft chart. He's not a 21 guy. I think Bowe can be a number one guy for you. We shall see when the season starts, though, right? I think another sleeper is Austin in St. Louis. It's kind of iffy. I mean, St. Louis is a 500 ball club. I don't have them doing much better this year. A lot of competitive games, especially in that division. But if they're losing, Bradford's going to Austin. Now, I don't think he's a number one guy, folks. I think he's a good number two. But I'd definitely move him up my draft board. I think he's a lot higher than 30. I think he falls into the good, solid number two guy for you. And just another wow, 31. Bolden in San Francisco. Can somebody tell me who the number one guy is going to be there? It's not Crabtree, he's hurt. I know they like to run the ball. But I'll tell you what, Bolden's a good receiver. And if Kaepernick and Bolden get some kind of connection going on, he's going to be targeted a lot. And Bolden's that guy, when Kaepernick rolls out and has to scramble and use his feet, Bolden's a guy that can get open. And you may see some of those plays that were not targeted for Bolden going to him because Kaepernick is using his feet. So something, again, there to think about. I definitely move him up. And then right behind him, Stevie Johnson in Buffalo, 32nd. If you go by rankings, if you're in a 10-team league, that makes him a third receiver on your team. He's a number two guy. Could be a number one, depending on how the other receivers develop. They've got a very talented young group of receivers. Looks like Manuel's going to win that job with Cobb being hurt. So that's a question mark. But if those receivers can develop and pull some of that double coverage away from Stevie Johnson, he could fall into a very solid number two guy for you. And then as we go down the list, the one guy that I think that was rated the lowest, that I think will actually be a good number two guy for you, is Jacoby Jones from Baltimore. ESPN has him at 60. But with Pitta going down and Bolden being gone, Flacco's going to need a guy. I know he's got Smith, but all I see in Smith is a guy that stretches the field. I actually think Jones is a better receiver. I think if you're in a reception league, he may get you receptions and get you some yards. Not going to give you great numbers, I don't think. But I think he's going to give you some production. So there's my take, folks, on the receivers. I hope it was informative for you. You may agree or disagree with me, but again, you want some more detailed information, go to Fantasy World Order, FWO365.com for all of your fantasy needs. As always, I'll see you at the next red light. Enjoy your evening.